Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we are talking about the spell Tasha's Mind Whip. All
But
right.
from the mind.
Yes. That's
That would be
why
a head
I
whip.
started up here.
Ah, gotcha. I tried to too.
I
This is.
could have been, but no.
Oh, that's
All
better.
right.
That's definitely better. Yeah, 100%
Okay.
agreed. So this is a second level. We have fun here. This is a second level enchantment spell from the Tasha's Cauldron and everything. It takes an action. It's got 90-foot cast. Components of verbal. It's got a duration of a round. Okay. You slightly lash out at a creature you see within range. It makes an int save, which is kind of a unique save. On a failed save, it takes 3d6 psychic damage, and it can't take reactions until the start of your next turn. Moreover, on its next turn, it can't take a reaction until the end of its next turn. I apologize. Moreover, on its next turn, it must choose whether it gets a move action or bonus action. It just gets one of the three. On a successful save, the target takes half damage and suffers non-deal effects. At higher levels, normally I'd say ignore this, but at higher levels, when using third level or higher, you pick extra creatures to mind whip as opposed to increasing the damage. So you get 2 things for 3d6 damage, 3 things for 3d6 damage, etc. as you upcast to the third, fourth, fifth level. Out the gate, what are your impressions? What do you think?
All right. Do you remember when we did second level wizard spells, the top 5? And I don't did neither of us pick this one?
Yeah, and I stand by my decision.
Yeah. I don't. I regret it. This I think the commenters are correct. We were insane. I love this. I wish I'd looked more closely at it before we did that list.
I think Tasha's Mind Whip has a fine enough utility. I think that it's a spell that you can get a decent amount of mileage out of. I think it's going to be inconsistent, and I think that the situations that it's good are more narrow than I think might initially be on the surface.
All right. Well, second level damage, 3d6, and if it saves, it still does a little something.
Yeah, I think it definitely does enough damage for a second level spell slot. It's not doing good damage for a second level spell slot, but 3d6 is the right number to have this effect attached to it, I think.
And the effect. I mean, I think that's really cool. You're forcing, your opponent to choose between an action, a bonus action, or movement. And I think if you are out of range of their attack, then you're effectively wasting their turn.
That I think is the major use case of it. I think this is a spell you engage a fight with the intention of eating 2 or 3 creatures' turns with, oh my goodness, pardon, at most with upcasts. So that's something that you see one thing that is within 90 feet of you. You use your Mind Whip, it fails hypothetically, it takes 3d6 damage, you eat its next turn. That's pretty good. I don't know if its best second level wizard spell's good. That's pretty good, though. You also have to then consider it has to have no ranged options, because if it has a ranged option, it will take that. It will always do that. If it has ever the ability to make an attack, it will do so. And we should also note the bonus action text there more or less doesn't matter. There are single-digit quantity of monsters in the monster manual that have bonus actions to take. The vast majority just take an action. This will do a little bit more against goblins because they have the nimble escape, disengage, dodge, or disengage, hide. They've got a couple other like spellcastery stuff that gets bonus actions, but the vast majority of things are either moving or taking an action. Once things have moved to a spot where they are taking a different action, whether that be ranged attack rolls or melee attack rolls, typically, they don't need to move anymore, and they typically aren't. This can be a situation where you can attempt to get something to be unable to take reactions to get a free disengage from the ally, and then it also can't move or engage, so you have that little window where it encourages some cooperation that I'm a big fan of. I think all of that is fine. I don't know if all of that is particularly, if it has a big enough impact on the average fight that I'm super thrilled with it.
I don't know. I guess I kind of, no, I see what you're saying about having a ranged option and they don't need to move, but I still, I don't know. Maybe you cast it and you get out of their range, something. I feel good about taking away my enemy's options.
I think that is largely a powerful thing. I think The problem is so taking away actions is good. Giving them the option of what to lose is worse than it looks. So their ability to say I can take whatever is the best strategic option is to me, whether it be movement or an action, is going to often lead many monsters to take either good actions that you don't want them to take anyway, that might be suboptimal, that might be worse than moving and attacking, but actions that are annoying, actions that you don't necessarily want them to take. So like you might expect them to only move up to engage. Alternatively, they can just take the dodge action. That's perfectly reasonable that any monster is able to do, and that's a defensive option that they have access to. So you've traded the saving throw to put them in a defensive stance to make your hits less likely to happen. That's still good. I'm not saying that's not something that's valuable, but it is not as good as eating their whole turn. It's not as good as them moving and doing.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I like that. I mean, reversing roles again. I like that line of text because you give them the choice of what they miss out on. That's making the spell effective but not busted.
Yeah, I mean, I think if this spell ate an action, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Like, I think this spell could say they can't take an action next turn, and I'd be like, yeah, that seems good. And that probably makes my top 5. Where it is now, having run my encounters I have found as a DM as I've progressed more and more, as I DM more and more, in order to make challenging and exciting encounters for me to DM and for my players to feel like they all have moments to be cool and shine, I tend to run larger and larger quantities of enemies, some that have low amounts of HP, some that have high amounts of HP, with there being some diverse encounters of very often 2 or 3, very rarely 1 monster. Like, I think I haven't run a single monster on its own in probably years. Like, the vast majority of encounters that I'm putting players into are against typically 6+ monsters, sometimes 4 to 5 monsters, rarely 2 to 3 monsters. That makes Tasha's Mind Whip hitting one of those monsters to deny one of those options isn't necessarily amazing, specifically because I like to run monsters, especially in the lower quantities, that have ways to interface with all of the enemy team, that have ways to challenge all of the party members in some unique ways, and that typically involves range attack rolls. If you're going against, like, specifically one beefcake, angry giant badger that's going to charge you down and that's all it knows how to do, this spell's great. I just find that those encounters are getting fewer and fewer at my personal tables. This might be a reason why Tasha Mind Whip is specifically worse in the way I play IDM than it may be at others. I find that in those other tables, though, where you are against one single instance monster, like, there's going to be very often effects that incapacitate better, and the 3d6 damage isn't so good that I'm considering it over it, right? Incapacitation, like knocking prone to give advantage on allies with attack rolls, seems better, and that's like the Tasha's Hideous Laughter does that against most anything. That's pretty good. This hits literally anything, where there are some caveats to like Hideous Laughter and stuff that it doesn't necessarily hit creatures with low int and stuff. But I think there's going to be a large amount of time where the damage isn't enough to justify it over most of the other conditional effects, and the condition isn't better than the conditional effects. So the damage isn't good enough to cast it just for the damage. So I'm left in this awkward little, like, it's a fine, flexible utility pick that I might slot in on some character sheets where it's like, I need a bit more juice on my enchanter character. I need a bit more juice on my, or I want a bit more crowd control on an already high damage character. I take this as a backup option if I know what my primary role in the party is. I don't think this is something that I primarily go to, and like I can always rely and consistently get good value out of Tasha's Mind with counter after encounter after encounter. It'll have some niche uses and some not necessarily niche. It'll have a decent chunk of encounters where it does make a meaningful time eating an action. It'll deny a single turn sometimes. I think that's where it kind of stops, though.
Well, let me ask you this: you're always a big fan of cooperation. Now you got Tasha's Mind Whip. Somebody else has Bonfire. They cast Bonfire on the monster. You Mind Whip them. Now they have a real choice to make.
Yep.
Do they attack or get out of the fire?
I think that definitely adds an interesting choice for the monster, and it does collaborate with your buddy. This is a common thing we see in a lot of games. If you're offering your opponent a choice, that is typically worse for you than not giving them a choice at all.
I understand that, but in the universe we live in with the wording of the spell, I'm saying
there are other spells that don't offer them that choice. You could hold person them, and they're sitting in that bonfire.
I like the choice though. It feels especially cruel and sinister.
Well, fair.
Choose your death.
if that's the vibe you're going for, this definitely is an up your alley. It's a perfectly reasonable time to take this, I think.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning higher levels. Are you upcasting this?
I think occasionally. I don't like it's no fireball, it's no giant AoE damage thing. It also is not like there are upcast versions of a lot of the conditional spells that hit more things. Those tend to be fewer and far between, though. The options for those tend to go down a bit, especially at third level specifically. I think there will be times where you can say, I have Tasha's Mind Whip, and this is the only conditional effect I need, and that'll be good enough. And it'll also, again, on this is on the damage batteries. These are the people that are consistently casting Fireball. And then you've got a tool, Tasha's Mind Whip, to deal with the dragon and its lieutenant. And then that deals with them for a round while your party figures the rest of their shit out and gets up to the dragon to start doing much damage to it, right? And then you can do other stronger, typically better single target damage effects or more area of effect damage spells. It'll flexibly slot in whenever you need it to, and there'll be windows. I don't think it'll be like, again, the majority of fights, but there'll be a couple fights campaign where it'll be like, upcasting this to hit 3 things is really good right now because there's 3 main enemies. Denying 3 main enemies a whole round is great, and this does that in this instance. The fact that they can pass
in that case, the damage is like negligible, right?
Yeah,
because the damage doesn't scale up.
Yeah, you're not really casting this past 5th level either, just because there's definitely better area of effect control tools than that by that tier. But again, 3rd, 4th level slots, I think you could absolutely occasionally bust this out. And it's not, again, it's still doing damage. So you're never getting nothing. And that's a really big selling point to it. It's at minimum, you're getting what? 5.5, 6 damage, and that's not nothing. That is a real contributor that's pushing your team towards victory, even if it's only an inch.
Yeah, so man, anything else you got to say
about
it? I am, even more so than when we started this. I love the cooperation potential.
I think especially disabling reactions will leave this sometimes being like, oh crap, he put a money over his head. Mind Whip the thing so he doesn't get reaction so we can leave. That's going to be often a decent use case for it, where you can punch a little bit and then run away and be like, suck on that, and rides behind your wizard now. That can be a cute moment. It does open up that cooperation. I don't think the spell's bad by any stretch. I don't think it's like top tier or anything, but it's a perfectly reasonable little spell.
All right, well, how reasonable do you think it is? What's your rating?
I think it's a 3.
3?
I put this right down the middle of the road for wizards.
And
sorcerers.
Guess I'm not going to give it a 5. But
listen, if that's what your heart tells you, if those YouTuber comments really got you, convinced you that the spell is cracked, be against.
This is a 2nd level spell, and I feel like it does a lot. I'm giving it a 5. You
do it.
All right. Well, I guess that's that. That was Tasha's Mind Whip. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Otherwise, thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. We will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.